Okay, hi. I'm Guy O'Lakin. This is Physics 1 with a calculus requirement. Um, so be sure you're in the right class. So you need to have had calculus. Uh, this is the one that you want if you're thinking of being a physics major or any kind of engineering major, or if you just have a special interest in this topic. I am mostly today going to just go through the syllabus, talk about the structure of the class. Um, I don't think we'll probably get into any actual physics today, but we'll see how long this stuff takes. So let me start by just walking through the D2L website a little bit. I think almost everybody here has probably taken classes at Normandale before, and you're used to D2L and stuff. But everything that I'm going to give you, every document you need in this class is going to be on D2L. So the first requirement for this class is you need to know how to get on here. So let me know if you have trouble or you haven't done this before, and I can help you get on. Okay, when you open the main page for physics, this is what you see. There's one announcement, just a welcome announcement right now, but when I post new assignments or whatever, it's going to sort of scroll down little by little. So the new assignment, the assignment for today will appear above this one. And so just get in the habit of checking that every day, doesn't take very long, but that'll always tell you whether there's something new that you should check out, whether I've made updates to problems, or sometimes there'll be like some corrections I'll make to problems and stuff. So I'll try to post that stuff when it's up there. And I'll try to be good about giving you a heads up on the announcement when exams are coming up and quizzes and whatever. You try to be self-sufficient on that stuff though too, because I will forget that sometimes. I have 4 different classes and so I'll forget that sometimes. But I'll try to give you a heads up, like exam 2 is in a week, whatever, that kind of stuff. The documents that you need for this class are pretty much all going to be under materials, content. And so you can see homework problems are up. Like I said, those will get changed as the semester goes on. Solutions to selected ones of the homework problems. So like if you go to homework problems, these are all different topics. So let's say we go to 2D particle kinematics. And then here are just a bunch of the problems. And I've also posted lecture notes from last spring. So once we get going in this class, I'm going to be writing my lecture up on this the same way normally people would write on the whiteboard. And so instead of reading it off the whiteboard, you'll just be reading it off the screen. And the benefit of that is at the end of the class, I can save the notes that I've taken. So like, let me just go to some random day from last spring, January 29th last year. This is what you get. And so I'll post a PDF of every lecture. And I'm also recording a video as I go. So I'll give you a link to the videos. But what you'll see if you watch these videos that are going to be on YouTube is you'll see me writing this sort of stuff at the same time you hear my voice talking about whatever. So if you miss a class, it's a nice way to see the class, take notes. Also, if there are parts that sort of got by you and you just want a second crack at understanding what I'm saying, it's nice for that. And so this is all the notes from the last time I taught this class. And so if you ever want to like read ahead or something, or if you ever want to see a slightly different, it's basically like most of these lectures are going to be pretty similar to the lectures I gave at the corresponding time last year. But if you ever want to see a differently worded, slightly different take on the same material to help you understand something, you can go back to these old lecture notes and check that out. So after today and every day after that, there'll be a new section on here called current lecture notes. And, one by one, the new lectures will get posted there. And then the last section on here is course information. That's where the syllabus is. And that's all that's in this section for now. So let's check out the syllabus. Okay. So it gives some contact information up at the top. My PhD is not in physics. It's in sort of engineering math. And so I like sort of classical physics. I know well. The modern physics with quantum mechanics and relativity and stuff, I never really studied that stuff, so I don't have very good answers for you about the stuff like what if an electron does this, and like coupling through time and space, and all. Like I have a pretty like layperson's understanding of that kind of stuff, but this kind of stuff is right in the area of what I did. My office is just sort of kitty corner across the hall. My office hours, though, are going to be in the tutoring center. So really, probably the only time that you need to know where my office is if we make a schedule time outside of the regular office hours to meet. And I'd be happy to do that if you have trouble making it to any of the office hours, or if you want to talk privately about something or whatever, just send me an email and we can meet. The best way to get a hold of me is email. The phone, I don't have a phone in my office, so if you call and leave a message, I just get an email saying you called, and then I go listen to it and whatever. So you can get a hold of me that way, but email works better. Lectures are Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at this time. And there are 2 lab sections. One is basically 10 to noon on Friday, and the other one is Friday from 2 to 4, basically. It's fine with me for you to, so you're scheduled for one of those 2 labs, but if you'd rather come to the other lab section, why don't you just show up? We'll see if it works. Right now, this class is pretty full, but usually a lot of people drop and whatever in the first week, I think, like when the bills start being due and whatever. So why don't you try just showing up to whatever lab section you want to, and if it doesn't work, we'll correct it later. But my office hours, actually, I have to change this. I just found out that my kids have something I have to get them to on Wednesday. So, but the basic idea of my office hours is Monday through Thursday from 2 to 3. And then right now it says Wednesday is 2 to 4 instead of 2 to 3. That's going to have to switch to Monday, but the basic gist of those is right. Yes, exactly. Yep. Anybody have any questions about any of that so far? That's right. Okay, so yeah, let me talk about books. So there is no textbook for this class. And I would say for this class, I mean, as far as getting ready for tests and stuff, your best resource is just the class notes. I'm trying to boil everything down to what I think is important, and that's what the the tests are going to be based on and stuff. So um, as far as doing well in this class, I would not look for outside sources. You just have to understand what I say. And if you don't understand what I say, you have to come talk to me about it, basically. Um, and I do think it's a good idea to have a textbook for future reference and for people who are just interested outside of just trying to do well in this class. Like if, you just want to know about these topics in more detail or something. Um, the I have three recommended books here. And actually, the cracking the AP Physics C exam, that's because I was teaching this class to high schoolers last year. That's not so relevant to you. Although I guess it probably wouldn't be bad. It's still like same topics or whatever, but I didn't mean to leave that in there. So really, there are two recommendations. Physics for Scientists and Engineers by Knight. That is the textbook that the other people teaching physics here use. And so when you take Physics 2, it won't be from me, but you'll need to buy that book eventually. And then Sham's Outline. Sham's Outlines are great. They have Sham's Outlines for every science class you'll take. They're little paper, well, they're not little, they're maybe between 100 and 200 pages. They're paperback books. They cost $15 or something each. And they have concise little descriptions of whatever the topic is. But mostly, the main benefit is they have tons and tons of problems with full solutions for some of them and just answers for other ones. And so it's a great way to just practice if you're looking for more problems. I like little by little just sort of got in the habit of any class I took, I just bought the Sham's Outline for it. $15, you can't really go wrong. I have a whole basement full of Sham's Outlines. And there were some topics where I actually used it to learn what I needed about a topic that I didn't take a class in. So even though they're designed to be supplements to classes, there's enough information there to sort of figure out topics if you want to. Okay. But the the main idea is instead of assigning you 224 pages of reading or something over the course of this semester from a textbook, you are only responsible for the stuff I say in class. That's a considerable decrease in the amount of material you're responsible for. And so the trade-off is I expect you to understand, remember what I say well, and that's going to mean not just taking notes, but going back and reading your notes, and then going back later and reading your notes, and then going back later and reading your notes. Okay, and that's what I want you to do. And I'm going to, so in my daily assignments, it'll always say, here's what you're responsible for reading for today, and it'll always be the notes from that day, and then it'll always be notes from a little earlier and notes from a little earlier, and I'm going to try to just give you a systematic way to keep going back and refreshing your memory. But as you see, when we start talking about exams and quizzes and things like that, everything in this class is cumulative. So you won't be taking an exam on section 1 and then an exam on section 2 and so on. Everything, you're going to be responsible for everything we've talked about up until that point on every exam and every quiz. And like I said, I'll keep trying to refresh your memory on old problems, on old exams, on old notes by the way that I make assignments. But yeah, you're responsible for everything the whole time. That sounds like sort of a pain, but the plus side is it's a lot less of a struggle to get ready for the final then if you've been doing it all semester. The required materials, you need a scientific calculator with trigonometric functions. And you're welcome to use any calculator you want in this class. So graphing calculators are fine. I know like in some math classes, they don't want you to use TI calculators, graphing calculators on tests. That's fine with me. And then and we'll talk about how you'll use this uh, in a minute. But you need a 3-ring binder and access to a hole punch. And we're going to set up this 3-ring binder to have your class notes in a front section, and then all the assigned problems and your solutions in a middle section, and then all your exams and quizzes in a back section. And so this is going to be the resource that you can go back to after this class is over. If you want to refresh your memory on something, you have all your notes there, you have all your assignments, you have all your work, and it's easy to get to, and so that's the idea. There's no textbook, so this is your textbook. Yes. And then, well, I mean, you have a notebook that can just go in the binder, so that's fine with me. Any other questions yet? Okay, and prerequisites, Calc 1, and you should be taking Calc 2 at the same time. And the website is the D2L site. I mentioned that before. So you need to make sure you're on the D2L site regularly. I'm not going to go into the topics. We'll go into that later on. Okay, the grading. So this is the highest the grading scale will be. If the distribution of grades is lower than I expect, then I'll relax these. But usually the grading scale ends up being 92 and above is an A, 82 to 92 is a B, and then 70-60. That sounds like a high grading scale, I know, but that usually ends up giving a pretty good distribution of grades. I think the way that, like for example, my exams are sort of similar enough to the problems that you're assigned that people tend to do pretty well, and that 92% A, 82% B doesn't end up being a very high bar. As I mean, compared to what you might think. I don't ever give tests where the average, like maybe you've taken science classes where the average score on a test is 61 or something, and the A's go down to 72, but I just never give those kind of tests. Everything that I give on exams will look similar to something you've seen before, and so this won't end up being that bad. Everybody gets a little nervous when they see that, like, oh my gosh, is there going to be like 1A and whatever, but that's not how it's going to be. The final grade is broken down into 60% exams, 15% quizzes, 15% binder checks, and 10% lab exams. And so now I'm just going to go through each of these 4 categories and talk about how those work. The binder checks, by the way, notice there's no homework in there. But when I check the binders, I'm making sure you're doing your homework. So those 2 binder checks are really the only time that I'm going to be checking your homework. Okay, so first of all, exams. That's the biggest chunk of your grade. There are going to be 5 exams. That includes the final. So the final is just exam 5. They're weighted equally. So the final isn't worth any more points than the other ones. They're each worth 12% of your grade. And each one of those exams is cumulative up to that point in the class. So when you take exam 4, you're responsible for all the material from the start of the class up until exam 4. So everything's kind of like a final up to that point. And I have sort of a mulligan built into this system in the following way. If your exam 5 is higher than any of your first 4 exam scores, percentages, then exam 5 counts as your 5th exam score, and it also replaces the lowest of those first 4. Okay, so like say you do well on exams 1, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. But on exam 2, you like look at everything. You have no idea what's going on. Uh, you sit there crying for the entire class, like drawing pictures of, you know, uh, people stabbing themselves or whatever. And then you like hand in your thing and run out into the hall and curl up in a ball. And okay, that's not a good experience for exam 2. And you get a 4% on exam 2 or whatever. But then you get a 90 on exam 5. So that counts as a 90 on your exam 5. And now you get a 90 on exam 2. Okay, so that's how that works. If your exam 5 is your lowest score, then it still counts as your score for the final, but it only counts that once, and you keep all your first 4 scores in their spots. Okay. And so that system is also my system for makeup exams. So if you know ahead of time that you have to miss an exam and you have a good reason for it, I'd be happy to give you a makeup exam. But if you just miss an exam without talking to me beforehand or whatever, then say you miss exam 3, then for the rest of the class on D2L, it says that your grade for exam 3 is 0. But then when you take exam 5, you get a 90 on exam 5. So now it says you have a 90 on exam 5 and a 90 on exam 3. Okay. So that setup can replace a bad score or an exam that you just miss, and then it just replaces the 0. Okay. So don't miss 2 exams like that, because there's nothing built in for a second makeup exam. Like I said, I can be lenient about, like, as long as you let me know ahead of time and we talk about why and it's in the ballpark of being a reasonable excuse. Here is the scheduled final. So it's on Monday at 11 a.m. on finals week in the same room. Any questions about exams? Yes. Yeah, we'll just do it with that system. Okay. The next part of the grade is, well, I have them out of order, I guess, but binder checks I'll talk about next. Okay, so your binder should have 3 dividers in it. So it's separated into 3 sections. The first section is your class notes. The second section is the assignments and your work on the assignments and the solutions that I post. And then the third one is exams and quizzes. And when I do the binder checks, I'm going to be checking that you have complete notes for all the classes, that the notes are legible, because it doesn't do you any good. This is supposed to be your go-to reference after this class is over, and it doesn't do you any good if your go-to reference, you can't make any sense out of it when you go back. So if you take notes that are really sloppy, or even one page of your notes is really sloppy, you should recopy it in a way that you can make sense out of later. And if you don't want to do that, that's fine too. You can just print out the notes that I post, the PDF, and put those in your binder, and that'll be legible, and that's fine with me. But I just want you to have legible, good notes for every class in the semester. Okay. And so I think most people find it works best to take notes on this the same way you take notes when someone writes on a whiteboard. But some people might want to just, I know there are some people who just like to sit and not take notes and just look at what I'm writing and listen to what I'm saying. And that'll work fine in this class, because you can go out and print out the notes after, put those in your binder, read that later or whatever. and you will have just been sitting here sort of listening to this like it was a seminar or something. That's fine. Yes.
On ourselves and then pay attention to with our same notes, but our notes written out.
Well, you can do that with you can do that. Well, I don't have it here, but so you can use the notes from the last time I taught the class and do that. Um, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna print them out, but you can print them out and bring them, and then you can take notes sort of in the margins if you want. That'll work fine. Uh, I haven't taught calc-based physics too many times, so I'm still at a point where every semester I teach it, I change things quite a bit. Um, so I don't know, try it and see if it works. Um, but it is important that these are legible. So you can use my notes, you can recopy your notes, or if you have if your notes are pretty readable the first time, that's fine. But make sure they're readable. The second section is the assignments and solutions. On D2L and the announcements, every day I'm going to assign problems. And you need to put the solutions to those problems in your binder in the assignments part. And those also need to be done with some care so that somebody reading them can make sense out of what you're doing. And one thing I want you to pay special attention to is your figures. Make sure your figures look like you put some effort into it. And the main thing that to me that entails, what are the chances these have ink in them? They're probably from last semester. The main thing that means to me is I should be able to tell what lines are supposed to be parallel, what lines are supposed to be perpendicular, and what lines are supposed to be neither of those. Okay, so now that didn't take me a ton of time, and I didn't have to use a straight edge or anything. But from this figure, you can see these are parallel, these are parallel, these are parallel, these are perpendicular. This is neither, with this and this, right? That's about the level of care I want you to put in your figures. What I don't want to see is whatever. Oh, this wasn't here before. Okay, it's too sloppy. Okay. I think if you get in the habit of doing your assignments with some care, remember that this is it's a document that you're using to convey ideas to the person grading it. And since most of you are planning to be engineering majors, um, you're practicing conveying information to coworkers and things like that. You'll be happy if you get in the habit of doing this in a professional way now. In fact, without changing anything else you do in your assignments, if you do your figures with care, make your work legible and easy to follow, it's going to improve your scores without, you don't even have to get any smarter. Your scores get better. And that's, we're looking for easy tricks like that, you know. Um, and then the last one is after exams and quizzes come back, grade them, come back to you, 3-hole punch them, and just put them in the back, just so you have them if you want to look at them later. Okay. There will be 2 times in the semester that you turn in your binders, and it's going to be different dates for the 2 lab sections. And so, well, it's listed there. Yeah, check one is February 27th for one lab section, March 4th for the second lab section, April 29th is the second check for one lab section, May 6th for the other one. And choose those dates just based on where there's not stuff coming up for a little while, so you can go without your binder for a couple days. I try to get those back as fast as I can. That's why I have them staggered like that, so I just get half as many at once. I can race through those and then collect the next ones. The total binder evaluations are worth 15% of your grade, so each of these checks is worth 7.5%. Any questions about that? If you have any, one thing I'd be happy to do anytime you want, bring your binder to me after you've done a couple assignments and just show me what you have. And just, I can tell you like, yes, this is what I'm looking for, or I want you to do this better, this, whatever. I want you to do this worse. And then the quizzes. About every 2 weeks, there's going to be a 15 or so minute quiz at the end of class. The exams are all based on problems. The exams are, you'll be asked to solve problems similar to the problems that you're doing in the assignments. The quizzes are different from that. The quizzes are always short answer questions about stuff I've said in class. So the way to get ready for the quizzes is to read back over your notes. Okay? It's just a way to make sure that you're reading through your notes enough to remember what I say. Because, really the key thing is being able to do these problems. But all this stuff I'm saying, that stuff is designed to help you do the problem. So I just want you to listen to what I say, read what I say again, read otherwise, because I don't really want to be up here for no reason. I got other stuff to do. And so these are the dates. Let me know if you have conflicts with any of these, and we can maybe work something out. The lowest quiz score gets dropped. So there's 6 quizzes scheduled here. 5 of those get counted. And so each one of the counted quizzes is worth 3% of your grade. So they're not worth, that much, but they add up to a big chunk. And what's not on here are the lab exams. I'll talk about that in lab. But 3 times during the semester, we're going to do lab exams where you're asked to solve, problems similar to the ones that we're doing in lab. I do my labs in a pretty unusual way. That's just we're only going to do a couple of sort of experiments like you think of in lab. Most of our lab is going to be spent trying to make sort of intuitive sense out of like in the lectures, we're mainly doing mathematical calculations of physics, and you're picking up some intuition about how the world works, based on those mathematical descriptions. But in lab, we're going to spend our time just explicitly thinking intuitively about these things. And what does it mean if the velocity is this direction and the acceleration is this direction and stuff. So mostly the labs will be just sort of answering questions, and the lab exams will be answering similar questions. Any questions about any of that yet? Yeah, they'll all be with partners. So I think there's 8 tables in the lab room. So when there's 24 people in each lab, groups of 3, something like that. And the last 2 things. So we need a certain atmosphere in this class, and almost all the time that works out perfectly fine. But I have had a couple of classes where there have been people who are just sort of regularly disruptive. There are different ways you can be disruptive, but and it mainly just involves kind of hijacking the flow of the class just over and over again, like making off topic comments over and over again, or, complaining over and over about, I think most people just understand sort of naturally that, you know, what proper behavior in a class is like. But I'm reserving the right to lower grades if that keeps being a problem. I think that's another thing that, you know, would serve you well uh, to develop good habits now as you go on in the future. And then cheating in this class, cheating mainly just means um, copying from the person next to you on exams or quizzes. Obviously, that's not allowed. Don't do it. But that's that's how I'll deal with that if it comes up. It doesn't usually come up in the engineering type classes. Um, I've had it come up more often in the lower level physics classes, which sort of makes sense because that's people who are like never wanted to be in physics in the first place. But um, okay, any questions about the class structure? Yes. Oh, yeah. I I don't care at all if you don't come to class. I mean, if like you don't want to miss quizzes and exams, but on the other days, if it works for you, yeah, feel free to stay home, just watch the lecture online, take notes. I would say be careful with that. I mean, I've had many students over the years that's worked perfectly fine for, but I've also had students who thought it was going to work well, and then they, didn't watch the lecture videos in the detail that they would have in class or whatever for whatever reason, and it just hasn't worked out. So you guys know yourselves. So I'm not going to be taking attendance. It's not going to hurt my feelings if you don't come. I won't secretly hold a grudge about it or whatever. Um, just be sure that you're going into the material in depth. Oh, yeah, there are not solutions to every problem. There are solutions posted to something like half of the problems. And when you have trouble with problems where I don't give solutions, um, ask me about them in class. I'll start most classes asking if there are any homework questions, or come to office hours. Either one of those, I'd be happy to work through problems for you. Okay, but yeah, there's not full solutions or answers posted for everything. Um, it's about half of them, and the rest of them we just have to do outside of that. Yes, Gaio. Any other questions? I'll put a link. They're going to be on a playlist on YouTube, and I'll put a link on D2L that points you to it. Yes. Mhm. Nope. Nope. Uh, it just, I mean, I guess it would be a chance to, just do a little better than your worst score up to that point. Yes. I would be happy to do it that way if you'd like. I think most people find the quizzes like there's, that they just for your own convenience, you'd rather take it in class. But let me know. Yeah, if you bring me a purple slip, I'll bring the quiz over there too. Any other questions? Okay. Um, well, there's one thing I want to say, and then we'll just stop early today. We'll get into some actual physics next time. Okay, so I want to say something about the expected time commitment. Um, I think, especially at a community college, we have a lot of students who are working a lot of hours and doing unorthodox things with credits to try to get, out of here faster or whatever. Um, and so um, I just want to be clear about how much time you need to have available to yourself for this class. And this is not something that I made up. It's a nationwide standard for how much time you should expect to spend on a time of X credits, on a class with X credits. Um, if you Google like expected time commitment for a college or university class, you'll get a bunch of hits from all over, very different universities all over the country. And they'll pretty much all say the same thing. For every hour in lecture, you should expect to spend 2 to 3 hours on the class outside of that. Okay. So um, this is sort of, so here's what I'm going to say you should have available to yourself. And it's sort of on the lower end of that scale, but it's just an easy one to remember. This is a 3 credit class. No, it's not. It's a 4 credit class. Okay, the lab is 1, but no, the lecture is 4 credits and then a 1 credit lab. Okay, so 2 times 4 is 8. Okay, so um, a little over 1 hour a day, 7 days a week, is the amount of time that you should be spending on this class. And if you're not spending that amount of time, then you're just not giving the class the amount of attention that's expected. You know what I mean? Um, and I guess on the high end of that scale would be what, 12? Um, so between 8 and 12 hours outside of class is what you should spend on this. And so if you're working a ton of hours or taking a ton of other credits, and you look at your schedule and you don't know where you would fit 8 to 12 hours into your schedule, then you should approach this class with extreme caution. You know what I mean? Um, then, I mean, maybe you can make it work, but if you're not able to make it work, it really shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. Okay. So if you think, so let's say about 8 to 10 hours a week outside of class. So if you think it's going to be hard for you to find that amount of time for this class, you should come talk to me and we should figure out uh, if there's reason to believe this is going to work or not. Because um, I've had, this repeatedly, the very disappointing. I mean, it's a bummer for me. It's a bummer for the student, where a student gets in over their head. They don't. It doesn't become clear to them it's not going to work out until after the period ends, where you can get a refund for the class, and it just ends up being like throwing away a significant amount of money at the same time hurting your transcript. Like, so let's not do that. You know. Um, So if you have a question about that, come talk to me and we'll sort through it. Any other questions about any of this? Well, let's stop there. And tomorrow we'll start with real physics.